I am curious. My questions can rain like confetti from heaven. I am curious, not like the instincts of cats needed for survival. My curiosity is the eagerness to learn of the pulse and space around me. I am curious, but saddened that curiosity killed the curious cat. I am curious. The need to know can advance technology or foster relationships. My curiosity is like the sweetness of light after groping in darkness. I am curious. My space sometimes stifle my questions. I am curious. My questions have 9 lives. They just won't die. My curiosity is like the wind that won't run out of breath. I am the curious cat.
Hashtag Lekki Massacre was first used in 2015, but whoever knows what happened in 2015 should tell, as this guy ain't telling. Do you know what happened at Lekki Tollgate in 2015? That's a question. As simple as that question is, it can get you into a whole lot of trouble. It was the night of 20th October 2020, and the curious cat asked a question. This question and the response the curious cat got was fast and furious. A question that should have easily sparked a conversation about laws concerning protests, curfew adherence, or penalties in Nigeria and other crimes quickly degenerated into insults, threats, and accusations. Being a pacifist, she went mute, but it got her thinking. What is it about questions that people resent? For those who don't know what happened at Lekki Tollgate in 2020, here's a quick recap. Soldiers came, fired shots. Media reported that 3 people died at the hospital. Some said it's 5 people. Some said it's 15 people, and some said the number doesn't matter. It shall be called a massacre. After the fury directed at me for asking insensitive questions, I decided to check on my inner circle of friends to ask them more questions. What is it about questions that infuriate people? Could it be an offshoot of our deeply religious society where religious leaders are unquestionable or unaccountable political leaders and civil servants? Let's go meet her friends for chit chat. She is the curious cat.
to the Big Five personality inventory. So this tries to explain human personality on 5 scales: conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, and the openness to experience. And of all these, if you are high on openness to experience, you are very likely to have that personality to ask questions, because this is a personality that measures the degree of intellectual curiosity and also creativity. So if you are curious intellectually, you will ask questions. If you are creative, you will ask questions.
Taking examples from a book I read, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. In that book, if I remember correctly, he spoke about power distancing. That in some cultures, so long one person is over you, somehow it's difficult to ask the person questions or query what the person is doing. I think he gave a particular example of some South Korean airline then that crashed, because even though the subordinate pilots saw that what the main pilot, the chief pilot, was doing was wrong, he couldn't ask questions. So he just kept looking until the plane crashed.
When we look at the nature theory of human beings, we have some things. Nature says that we come with all these things in us, but nature says that we need to grow them. So even if you have it in you, if the environment does not allow you to nurture it, it will remain redundant and not be useful to you.
Another thing in Nigeria is that we use age a lot. So people just feel if they are older than you, irrespective of how old you are, that you're small. They believe you shouldn't be able to ask them questions.
Why will you ask questions? Why? I mean, it's embedded in our culture. You respect your elders. Elders don't lie.
It wasn't even an issue. Why won't you even ask questions? I think because I never experienced somebody shutting me up. Note that they were not PhD holders, but they didn't shut us up. So it has nothing to do really with educated background or not. No, it's just maybe family values.
I don't think I get to ask even not just my parents, my senior ones questions.
But there were some other questions I asked that I got indirect answers to. Not that my parents got angry or anything, but they would just mischievously give me direct answers. For example, I know I used to wonder a lot about pads. Now, what is this thing that they usually buy, that is in a nylon and it's fluffy like cotton wool? So I know a number of times my mom would tell me, oh, it's cotton wool, it's tissue paper, or stuff like that. Or when I ask her, how do children come about? They'll tell me, oh, from the stomach. But
as much as, like I said earlier, I want to answer all their questions. When I see that, I'm like, no, look, we're bringing, I try to blend. So it's, what we're doing is modern parenting, where it's blended parenting. I am African. And I noticed that whether by default, I brought in some things that I have learned from, growing up. So when they ask me those kind of questions, I still balance. And I'm still like, look, you don't question everything.
I went to boarding school. It was worse off because my teachers couldn't just understand why, when they tell me, okay, you've asked this question, shut up.
Shut up is not an option when healthy skepticism is needed in a fake news age. Our ability to ask questions is crucial to sift facts from alternative facts. Imagine if all the people who made these posts go viral asked questions. Perhaps it wouldn't travel the world. Now, how do we stop internet users from sharing on impulse? Or how can we cultivate a fact-checking habit, knowing that fake news has a very loud microphone and a deep pocket? And bloggers are not the only ones peddling fake news these days. Mainstream media and influencers do so too. So it gets very tricky. Fake news, alternative facts are fancy words. Can we just call it lies already? Lies are cruel and devastating to their victims. Boldly peddling lies needs to stop.
There's a lot of polarization going around the world, a lot of misinformation and disinformation, otherwise known as fake news, around the world. So, and there's a lot of reasons for why that's the case. One big reason is the fact that it's really easy for somebody to throw up a fake news site and make money off of it because you can collect a lot of advertising dollars through digital ads, right? So that's why you've seen a proliferation of fake news. There's just also a lot of bad actors who are, you know, just putting up, just willingly misleading a bunch of like audiences and people, and that's part of the reason why fake news is on the rise as well.
No, we see a lot of fake news these days. People will just post anything, they cannot verify it, they don't even know, they will just get it or just form it and put it on Facebook, put it on Twitter, on WhatsApp.
When I give my misinformation and disinformation workshops, the thing that I always say is like, does this article kick up a lot of emotion for you? So does it make you super elated and happy? Does it make you super angry? Then that's always a check that you need to step back because your emotions are being manipulated. Because most things in life are like nuanced, right? Like reality is nuanced. There's a lot more than just one side to a story, right? So if you feel like very extreme emotions, it means you're likely being manipulated to like read the article and to share it. So that's always a warning sign that I always share with members of the public when I teach them about detecting fake news.
But to verify, it's still quite easy because if that news is authentic, once you Google it, just put it on Google, it will bring out different sources. If it comes out from a reliable source, then you can trust it.
I try to verify and I look at the motive of the person sharing the information with me. Like I can give you a classic example. For example, a friend of mine, someone who I grew up with, shared information concerning the vaccination for COVID and told her and was about how bad Bill Gates was and this and that. Fortunately for me, I now asked her that, why are you sharing something like this? I hope you know you're bearing false witness against the person. She says that there's so many things on the social media, so they don't even know what to believe again. You know, people give you that excuse, I don't know what to believe again. So since you don't know, if you don't know, don't share. I said, do you know how much Bill Gates has done in terms of vaccinations for, I think when he was an advocate of polio. In fact, the guy has resigned or retired, stepped down from Microsoft to be actively involved in public health.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be very, 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 very unfair for you to be spreading such falsehood and now tell me to forward it.
Mm-hmm.
I told them, don't be sending such things to me. You need to research on your own. Someone has sent something malicious, you just fall for it, and you now tell me to send to my. Meanwhile, you are in England getting all the vaccinations and all the treatments, so you're not telling me to send it to my people here in Africa. No.
I find that a lot of people who are critical news consumers these days, they actually read from a wide variety of sources. So there's some people who may read like, you know, an American news source, but then a Canadian one, and then a Nigerian one, and multiple different sources, even within those countries, just to kind of see like, okay, how are they reporting on these stories and what angles are they taking? Because every decision that a newsroom makes and every decision journalist makes is inherently biased because, you know, you're choosing the headline, you're deciding the words that go into the copy, you're deciding on the photo that's included, you're choosing as a journalist the sources that you're going to interview. So it's really important for members of the public to make sure that they are more responsible and more media literate and just educate themselves to make sure that they're getting the right information.
Sensational reporting is not ethical. What's ethical is unbiased reporting. Because when you already have a mindset, then your report is going to be influenced by that opinion that you have.
Like a journalist is supposed to report on an issue fairly, accurately, and rigorously. And sensationalization has no place in journalism, obviously. So I would say that there's a lot of ethical journalists around the world who like prioritize ethics. And while there's some journalists, I wouldn't even call them journalists, who sensationalize the news.
We have media that have integrity. They can't just publish anything. If they publish something that is false, they will sue them for damages for billions. Libel.
In fact, many times when I was a reporter, you get, and I was, when I started out, it was very much objective, reporting, balanced reporting. So you might get the government's perspective and you get a critic's perspective, and then you put them in the story. And I remember actually many times where maybe I couldn't, like, the government declined to respond. So what I would say is, like, this is what the critic says, and then the government declined to respond. But then I would try to get another expert who could possibly represent the government's perspective, or at least an alternative perspective. I also know, like, daily breaking news, there's always a timeline and a time crunch. So sometimes it's not possible by the time you have your deadline to be able to get access to many different perspectives, but that is your responsibility as a journalist, and you really should strive to do that. Or all journalists should really strive to get multiple perspectives, not just like two opposing ones. Even if the government or an entity declines to respond, you should try to get other representative sources, or just sources that provide a different perspective, just to make sure you flesh out the story, so you're not just providing one view, because then if you're just providing one view, then it's just propaganda or PR.
I'm not very quick to share.
Well, it depends on what the post is about, how it appeals to my own senses, But I'm not really one for sharing like that, though.
My parents are chief of those kind of people. They don't waste time. Immediately they just say a post that has Jesus in it. They just send it to everybody without entirely looking at everything. I mean, the entire content of the post.
But if it really, really appeals to my senses, if I feel it's okay, yeah, maybe between 8 and 10.
Fake news is like taking fake drugs, can kill. Fake news can destroy people's businesses, can destroy people's reputation, can destroy homes, can destroy all aspects of life, can destroy a country's economy, can destroy so many things.
I also fact check my own fiance. Like, whenever he shares a piece of news with me, and I'm like, he gets insulted sometimes because I'm like, can you tell me where that's from? He's like, don't you trust me? He's like, I know what I'm talking about, but I'm like, I'm a journalist. Like, I need to make sure, like, I need to read the source directly.
If you believe everything you read, it is better you don't read at all.
There is an existing social media anti-lies and self-check rule that demands you to pause to ask yourself these 5 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Well, I'm adding a 6th and 7th question. This time, direct the questions to the person sharing with you. The 6th question: what is your source? The 7th question: can you testify in court that your post is the truth and nothing but the truth? Trust me, most people will chicken out at the 7th question, and ditto, you've succeeded in breaking the cycle of lies. Politics and religion are usually hot topics. An unpopular question can get you cancelled or trolled forever. It doesn't mean you're wrong, but the space isn't ready for that conversation.
Like, you need to ask questions to know, otherwise you'll be lost. So my husband says, like I said, he will say, oh, like, somebody I've just met, I'll be asking, how long have you been here? I just want to know, and then we notice, and after that conversation, my husband, he now says, really, that was quite insightful. And I'm like, yeah, but you said I like asking questions now, because it now becomes a conversation.
Questions are conversation starters. Daryl Davis taught us how it's done when he, as a black man in America, asked the KKK leader a question. How can you hate me when you don't even know me? That question sparked a conversation, then a friendship, and later the KKK leader left the KKK group. It all began with a simple question.
If you look at freedom of information, freedom of speech is not even anywhere in the world, it's not 100%.
In times like that, the curious cat hides inside her mango to ask her insensitive questions. Bring it on, people! Her mango can take the punches.
Why is the killing of 62 people in America called mass shooting, but the killing of 5 or 15 people in Nigeria is called massacre or genocide?
Replying a question with a question is considered Nigerian, but Jesus Christ did that too. Replying a question with a question can also be a smart way to dig deeper and shed more light. Silence, a sarcastic response, or as some will say, Google is your friend, are still very modest responses if you cannot give an elaborate response. But pouring invectives, canceling people, or even issuing a threat to kill just because of a question are borderline outrageous.
You have an objective to discredit the testimony of this person. They have already given testimony, and what they have already given as testimony is on record. You are trying to impeach everything they have already said.
Aside from power distancing, culture, nurture, and nature, another reason people resent being questioned is that they assume your question is meant to discredit their statement. But one of my good friends has something to say to you if you fall into that category.
The next time I come with my questions, will I meet your wrath or your warmth?